All right, welcome to College Football Addiction. A little bit of breaking news this morning as Matthew Sluka, the quarterback at UNLV, has announced that he'll redshirt the rest of the season and then will end up transferring. He ended up saying that the big part of the reason was that some obligations that were promised to him were not met when he has been on campus now for a little while after the team has started 3-0. This video is one that we'll talk about the he said, she said of this, but then the thing that everyone is missing is really what I want to take some time and focus on. Now, after it was speculated that other teams have reached out and maybe offered him more money, maybe he does have other stuff kind of cooking, and I know tampering is not allowed, but we all know it happens. If your favorite team's not tampering, they're not going to win. His side of the story is that obligations were not met. Didn't specifically say NIL, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know that he's like complaining about the nutritionists and the types of steak that they're cooking him there in the dining hall or the mess hall. Obviously, this is probably about money, and which causes everybody to freak out and say, "Oh, NIL this, NIL that. Look what it's doing to our sport. All this, right?" Like I get it. We'll talk about that in a moment. But then the other side is going to fight back, right? They're going to reach out to their contacts in the media and they're going to say like, no, we did everything that was required. Carl Reed of 247 CBS Sports, I believe, says that every obligation was met by what was promised there at UNLV through their collective, through NIL, says that they ended up hiring an agent. Sluka's family and representatives ended up hiring an agent a few weeks ago, and after their 3-0 start, Sluka's representatives thinks that he is deserved or owed more money because his value has increased. They've beat a couple of Power 4 teams. They've had a couple of big upsets. They're off to a 3-0 start, maybe even looking like an outside chance at a playoff shot, right? If they can continue on undefeated, which maybe looks a little bit limited now. And so you've got this he said, she said battle. The one side says, hey, I wasn't paid. The other side says he was paid, but he just went and tried to renegotiate in the middle of the season, and that's not how we do things. We're going to stand by this, and we're not going to pay anymore, or we don't have more to give, whatever the situation is. And the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, right? Like it almost never is like all one side or all this other side, and maybe the two sides work it out, maybe they don't, right? But I'll say this, right, before we get to the main point or what I want to kind of emphasize today. Both sides, there are lessons for both sides in all of this, right? If the kid wasn't paid, if the player wasn't paid, right, not necessarily kids anymore, that's a problem, right? You wouldn't expect coaches to show up and work unpaid. You wouldn't expect TV broadcast networks to air games if their contractual obligations were not fulfilled on the other end. You wouldn't expect these admins of these schools or these conference commissioners to continue to work and do things if not being paid. Your mortgage company will not let you keep the house if you don't pay, right? Like we understand that, right? Like if they agreed to money and they didn't live up to that in any way, it's on UNLV. The other side is true too. If Sluka and his representatives, if he got bad advice from agents or just whomever, you agreed to a contract, and you performing well during the season doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get more money during that season, right? When Coach Prime in Colorado started out 3-0 last year, they didn't just automatically say, hey, you're off to a good start, you're going to get more money. When Mike Norvell at Florida State started out with a 4-0 season in 2022 and then won 13 games in 2023, like they didn't come to him like halfway through the season and say, hey, we're going to up your pay because you're 6-0 at this point, or we're going to up your pay because you're 10-0 at this point. No, they renegotiated at the end of the year. And so if that's the case, and they did try to get more money in the middle of the season, I think that's inappropriate. I don't necessarily think that that's how things should work. Now, was being 3-0, did that help UNLV? Absolutely. But if they had agreed to a number, then Sluka's side is wrong. Now, I'm not trying to disparage the kid at all. I also think it is kind of somewhat funny to look at the stats and look how he's playing and think about the fact that he's got a 43% completion percentage in 2 games under 100 yards. They played a bottom tier team in their second game, and he did have 161 total yards in that one. Now, he does have 6 touchdowns and 1 interception, but going back for more money, if that is the case, and I hope it's not, with a 43% completion percentage in 2 games under 100 yards is kind of hilarious to think about. But here's what I want to talk about, and it's this. People love to say, oh, NIL has ruined college football. Look at it now. Look, they love to bring this back to look what NIL has done to our sport. And I think when they say that, what they're essentially saying is the fact that the money has now changed hands a little bit is ruining our sport, because money has always been a driving factor in how this sport works. Do you think College Game Day picks games because for the love of the game? No, they pick games and they bring revenue to that area because of where they think they're going to get the highest return, where they're going to get the highest ratings. TV networks don't broadcast games because they love your school or they hate your school. They broadcast games where they think they'll get the maximum amount of viewership and have the best return on it. I'd say UNLV could be 11-0 and Alabama-Auburn could both be 0-11. And that game on the last Saturday of November is still going to be the Iron Bowl that the networks pick. It's not about reward. It's all about money. It's always been all about money. The coaches are being rewarded and there's buyouts and it's all money. And the idea that NIL ruined college football, I don't think NIL ruined college football, right? The ratings are still as high as they've ever been. The attendance is still way, way up. NIL just exposed college football. And the reason that we have NIL today, and I've ranted on this on several different platforms, I've talked about this on all of my social medias, I've talked about it on some different shows. The reason that we have NIL today is because the NCAA, the conferences, and the universities, your favorite university, the admin there, none of those three entities wanted players to get paid. And why did they not want players to get paid? Do you think they hated? No, I don't think they hated the players. I think they understood that the players were making them millions and millions and millions of dollars, billions of dollars as a network, as an enterprise. And they didn't want to share any of that. The NCAA definitely didn't want to lose any of their money. They wanted to maintain this guise of amateurism and not lose any of their money. The conferences, the SEC, the Big Ten, the ACC, the Pac-12, they didn't want to lose any of their money. They liked their cushy offices, their great, great suits, their big fat paychecks, and they didn't want to lose any of their money. And your favorite schools, president and administration did not. And they hate, I'll tell you, all three parties hate the fact that they're about to have to start to pay kids because the government had to get involved to revenue share with them. Now, why do we have NIL today? Because the NCAA basically would not budge on revenue sharing with the players, with the athletes that were making them the money. And they were forced by, again, the government, by different states, all 50 at this point, to give in and let the players capitalize on their name, image, and likeness. And if not for that, if we would have done things the right way, if we would have made them NIL would not be the mess that it is today. So you can blame Sluka, you can blame UNLV, you can blame NIL, you can blame whatever you want to blame. The real bad guy in all of this is the NCAA. It is the entire network. It is the rich boys, good old boys club. And it always has been. And NIL didn't ruin college football. It just exposed college football. And the money is now not necessarily going to the millionaires who sit behind desks and in offices that you will never see. The money is now going to the players, the ones who actually go out there and risk their lives at some point, their health, their bodies, concussions, ACLs, ankles, legs, all of the above. The money is now going to them. The money is now going to the ones who are working for it, is maybe the best way to say it. And the NCAA hates that. And so now what do you have? You have situations like this. Now, what if there were agreed upon contracts? What if there were agreed upon employees? What if there were agreed upon revenue share models and streams that already existed? We wouldn't have today's situation with Sluka like we're having. I don't really care if Sluka's right, if UNLV's right. Listen, I'm probably never going to watch a UNLV game. Sorry to any UNLV fans that tune in. I'm probably never just going to pick to flip that on unless there's just something crazy happening or you play on a Wednesday night, and so it makes it real easy for me because there's nothing else on. I'm probably not going to watch a lot of games where Sluka is the quarterback unless he transfers up to a team that I happen to follow or it catches my eye. So I don't really care about that. Who's right? He said, she said. That doesn't matter to me. What matters is that the NCAA is at fault here. And you may disagree with that. I don't really care. They got exposed. The NIL exposed what they were doing, and now we have opened Pandora's box, and there's no putting it back. We'll get the revenue sharing. That's coming. The NCAA is going to have to share. They're enforcing that. That is coming for every college. But the NIL has already been opened, and again, I don't think it ruined college football. You're still going to tune in and watch on Saturday. You're still going to tune in and watch on Thursday night and Friday night when Miami and Virginia Tech plays. But the culprit here, the bad guy here, is not Sluka. It's not his representatives, although sometimes kids do sign bad agents, and there are a lot of people that are in this now that are looking for their piece of the pie, which wouldn't shock me at all if that's the case. He has really bad representation, and they told him to go renegotiate midseason, and now UNLV told him to hit the road. Wouldn't shock me at all if he got some bad advice there. These agents are pretty slimy at times, not all of them, but certainly a good number of people looking out for their own interests. But I don't think Sluka's the bad guy. I don't think UNLV's the bad guy or their collective. I think this all comes down to the NCAA. And the reason we're going to continue to have issues like this, like we've seen there, and like we've seen at Florida, and like we've seen other places where kids say, I was promised this and it wasn't delivered, is because of the irresponsibility, the lack of foresight that the NCAA, Charlie Baker, his office, all of them had. And again, your favorite university's president and administration and the conference that you're so proud of, that you fly the banner for your conference, they're responsible too, because they hated the idea of paying the players. There's a lot of good actors. Oh man, we do this for the kids and we love, SEC and wave that banner, or Big Ten and wave that banner, or Jim Phillips at the ACC, Big 12, open for business. I get it. I don't know that those are necessarily good guys either, because they're still making their money, but they hate the idea that the kids are going to get paid now too. So those are my thoughts. I don't really care about the Sluka thing. I just wanted to bash on the NCAA. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Let's talk about this. Am I way off here? I don't think I am. Again, my take is not really on Sluka. I don't care who's right or wrong there. I just want to let you know the NCAA is an absolute travesty, and they're the reasons we have this situation today. So appreciate you guys for tuning in. Hit the subscribe button on your way out if you made it, 12, 13 minutes watching this video. And I appreciate you guys, as always, for checking out College Football Addiction.